preparing to live stream the meeting. It's redirecting to YouTube, so it's probably recording right now. All right, there we are. It looks like we're going live on YouTube. Okay. Preparing to live stream the meeting. All right, I don't remember how I dealt with that feedback before. It's redirecting to YouTube, so it's probably recording right now. It's totally recording. All right, there we are.
Can you turn the audio off on? Oh, it's all happening on the same computer.
Yeah. All right, I turned the audio off on that. So, okay. Well, there's our awkward start.
That's okay.
All right, I'll go back here. Thank you for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
So, welcome YouTube land. This is my second live video with a wellness expert in the United States, and I'm so glad to have my guest today here. I have Karen Schopoff Rooff, who hails from Texas and likes to help women be balanced in a very different way than I do. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michelle. Yeah. I am the founder of Well Balanced Women, and that came about because I'm very nerdy and I love to combine hardcore science with realistic tips to help women feel well and balanced in their bodies. And I believe that education is the tool for empowerment, and that once women become body wise, understanding really how does this meat sack that I live in actually work, that we can make decisions that support our health. And in doing so, then we have the energy and the vitality to chase after whatever we want.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. So for those of you listening, on season 2, we will also have a lovely interview with Karen. So stay tuned for that in my podcast. So different medium. So I have been inviting folks to come on roughly weekly to chat about some really specific tangible tips that we can do right now to manage while we are in a global lockdown. And in various parts of the world and within the country, different things are opening up. And we're just in this really strange space right now that literally no one has ever been a part of before. And I mean, it feels like uncharted territory to the nth degree. And we have different examples maybe of the past, but nothing on maybe this scale. So we're like in this crazy, stressful time right now. I was wondering, how have your clients been coming to you, like, and sharing some of the frustrations that they've been going through right now?
I think the biggest challenge is that we're just existing, as you describe, in this state of chronic low-level stress. And I don't mean to dismiss it by saying low level. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's not acute. It's not the, oh my gosh, I totally forgot to do that, and I have a deadline and I have got to get it done right now. It's just that whole like, what's going on? Who do we trust? How long are we going to be like this? And that uncertainty just breeds this sense of uneasiness. And what I love to study and share with people is about how that type of stress manifests itself physically in your body. And so what can you do in order to minimize those really unpleasant outcomes of living in this toxic, chronic stress mess?
So I like to operate, well, like is maybe stretching it. I tend to operate in everything's fine because I want everybody to be fine kind of thing. And I don't realize I'm stressed sometimes until I notice like my jaw is starting to get tight.
Yeah.
Or my shoulders are really.
Or your shoulders are up inside your ears.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What are some other things people can look for? Because like this low level stress, right? Like I think it becomes then like a norm. And yes. Yeah, you're just like, this is normal. This is fine. Almost like when somebody lives with chronic pain for so long
yes. Yeah.
that they forget the before time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You forget that there is a different way.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that's really so amazing. And what I love about working with people and helping them understand their bodies is that your body is so smart and it's so adaptable. And when you combine the communication that happens in your physical body with what's happening in your brain and your mind, then what you're getting is that rationalization, that normalization of like, well, I mean, yeah, I can't really like turn my head all this way because I've got this like giant knot here, but that just must be what happens, when you're stressed out or you get to be a certain age. And so, oh well,
Right,
you know,
right, right.
which when you articulate it and you say it out loud and you hear it in your ears, then for most people, that's when they're kind of like going, oh, that does sound a little silly. Like, I wouldn't tell if my best friend was coming to me and saying, I can't turn my head all this way because I have this incredible strain in my neck. You wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, you're just stressed and you should just live with that. Right? You would be like, oh,
Like,
girl,
give you a
you gotta like
massage,
get you some
something.
massage. You gotta put a heating pad on that. You gotta chill out. You gotta lay down. Let's do some deep breathing. Here's a yoga exercise I've tried, right? And you would be very, very solution oriented because who wants to live like that? And
Right.
you certainly don't want a friend to live like that, but we often don't treat ourselves as well as we treat others.
Oh, so true. So, what's and something that someone could do if they realize that their neck isn't turning the way they want, or they're starting to like feel that, and they're on the brink of discovering or acknowledging or admitting that they're dealing with stress. What's like the
Yeah.
next step?
It's so basic, but man, we live in a silver bullet society where we
Mhm,
just like want the quick fix,
mhm.
right? That we forget about all of these building blocks, that it's really the simple fundamental things that make an incredible difference. So for that, I would say first, I'm a very kinesthetic person because I work in the body and about movement. So put your hand where it hurts, right? If you haven't already figured this out, this is an example that I'm living through right now. So I do have like the snot right back here. So you put your hand on it and you feel it because that physical connection helps to create a better neural pathway, your brain and your body working together. So, okay, so I've got my hand back here and then block out the other stimulus. So you close your eyes and then I would tell people to take 10 deep breaths, like all the way in, filling up your lungs. They're way bigger than you think they are, and then to let it out really, really slowly. And is that going to solve the giant pain in your neck? Probably not, but it's going to increase your awareness of it. It's going to shut down the part of your nervous system that's going pain in the neck, pain in the neck, pain in the neck, pain in the neck, that's making the muscles squeeze even tighter back there. And it's going to allow the blood flow to come in and just start perhaps decreasing the inflammation that's around it and to allow a journey to recovery to begin.
I wrote down two things right there. One, literally get in touch with the body, and
Yeah.
two, focus and breathe. So that's kind of like the same, two-part step two. What's the next thing somebody could do?
I am a big fan of, depending on the issue, in this case, it would be heat.
Hmm.
Um, what you're hoping to do here is to increase the blood flow to that area to allow the muscles that are super clenched, like you were talking about earlier, like that happens in your jaw when you get stressed out,
Hmm.
to have increased blood flow to allow those to relax. And with that, you're probably going to feel some sense of awareness that it's happening. And it's in that moment that we go back to what you were talking about before, which is you realize how bad it actually was,
Right, right. Oh, that's
right?
awesome.
You don't have to get all the way to the end of the journey to realize, oh my God, I was carrying a really, really heavy load. Like if you're carrying a heavy load, you really realize it after about 4 or 5 steps. It doesn't, you don't have to walk 10 miles.
Hmm. Hmm. What's the thing, or maybe the next thing somebody could do when they're realizing that their body is in stress and they're taking steps to alleviate that?
Um, Going really, really carefully into making choices about what you're doing That's the really hard part about the situation that we're all living in right now, is that we have just been given tremendous responsibility over things that in the normal time we would be like, nope, not going to do that. But that doesn't mean that you can't give 100% in, like 400 areas of your life. Like, so recognizing where your energy needs to go and where you can pull back and say, you know what, I'm going to let this one simmer on the back burner for a little while. So, for the people who I've been working with who are, working full time, who have never worked from home before, who are now in a new work from home environment, and they have kids at home and they're supposed to be managing their children's schooling. And oh my gosh, I don't really know how to cook because I've never cooked before. And now I'm having to like cook every day. These people want to eat over and over again. And it's like, they're like, I'm just completely stressed. Recognizing that you're only one person goes a long way in being able to release that stress. Recognizing that there is nobody who can completely reinvent how they're doing their job, who can start being as good of a teacher to their child as the teacher who normally teaches them in this new environment, who can go from, 0 to cordon bleu in 6 weeks. So what standards can you lower? Like, how can you give yourself a break? Was there some outside project or, additional project that you'd taken on at work because you were feeling really gung-ho about, trying to get that promotion next year? Have a conversation with somebody about it. Or if your regular workload feels really heavy, have a conversation with somebody about it. Don't suffer in silence. Because a lot of times what happens is in our heads, we play out how these conversations are going to go, right? Like, well, if I tell my boss that I'm feeling really stressed out and I can't handle this right now, then my boss is going to think that I'm completely incompetent and I'm going to get fired.
Mm.
I mean, maybe that is a possibility. But isn't it also a possibility that you go to your boss and you say, you know what? I can't handle all this right now. Here are the 5 things that I feel really great about handling. Can I focus on those right now? Who knows what the answer might be? It may be incredibly supportive.
So I heard check your standards and like in giving yourself some grace, maybe recalibrate your boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't be afraid to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
And to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
I know we talked a lot about that in the podcast episode
Mm-hmm.
that's coming up, is that so many times, like this example of the conversation with the boss, you've already figured out how you think it's going to go. So you just continue to, do the death march and beat your head against the wall and suffer. I don't know. What happens if you ask?
Yeah.
Like, maybe it is that horrible scenario, but there's also a whole lot of room for opportunity where it's not.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes playing out the horrible scenario can be a little fun exercise too, because sometimes what we can realize is that there are layers of things that are going to happen before we actually get to the very, 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 very worst case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. But our brains don't really like that. They like to jump right into the swamp.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful way of giving yourself some control back in this really uncontrollable situation, is to have agency for yourself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and to speak your needs and to ask for help and to say, you know what? We're having grilled cheese for dinner.
It's on my lunch menu all week long.
Right? Or like, it's scrambled eggs tonight, folks. Like, that's,
Yeah.
and make your own toast if you want toast. I'll scramble the eggs and that's it.
Yeah.
But we come up with these really impossible standards, and I think that it's something that happens to highly driven people, right? Because we want to be great, and we don't just want to be great at the things that we already know that we're great at. We want to be great at everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And so suddenly we feel like a failure if we've never really cooked before, and then now we're not turning out the perfect, meat and veggies and
Mhm.
starch, or, the most amazing homemade pho or whatever on a nightly basis, and that we feel like grilled cheese is a failure.
Right, right, right. So that we chatted a little bit before we went live, and you mentioned about a really important thing, that your body and your life are not in sync,
Yeah,
and it's not your fault.
it's not your fault. No.
Is there any other place we want to dive into that?
Yeah, I think that it's something that we have lost sight of because you know because we're living in a time where technology is progressing and rolling over at such a rapid rate, right? Like we can't wait to get our hands on the next version of whatever, like as soon as the latest version has come out. They've already started inventing the next version, right? And so we have this rollover of technology at such a rapid rate that we don't realize that physically we're still living in the same body that not just our grandparents and great grandparents lived in, but that our like way long back ancestors lived in thousands of years ago. And what I mean by that is that your physiology, that is how your insides and your different systems work, aren't made to live in this chronic stress environment. So before COVID, we had the stress of I got to go to work, and then I got to go pick up kid number one, and I got to drop him off at the soccer game, and then I'm going to swing through somewhere and pick up some dinner, and then I'm going to pick up kid number two from the dance class, and then I'm going to get home, and the carpool's going to drop off kid one, and then we're all going to sit down and we're going to eat for 7 minutes, and then we're going to start working on homework, and then right, the and then kind of life. A different type of chronic stress, just as unhealthy for our bodies as the current cesspool of bubbling, simmering stress that we're in. And the challenge is, unless we close the stress circuit, the stress feedback loop, we continue to churn in that stress cesspool. And what that does to our bodies is create brain fog, create anxiety, create insomnia, create belly fat, create all of these sort of cascade of physical and mental health issues that mean that our body is not operating in an optimal environment. So it's not our fault,
Mhm.
but there are things that we can do to help better align the stress of life and how to close that stress circuit so that it doesn't take over and send us down this negative staircase.
Thank you for that. So we talked about already, like getting in touch with the body, and I you could probably do that on a very small, like we're talking about the pain in your neck, to just a larger, like when you're okay. I admit I'm living in low level stress, and then some probably different ways that you could do that as well.
Yeah, I mean that is, I take you back to the breath again, but
Hmm.
it's either, put both feet flat on the floor, sit up straight in a chair that you're in, or lie down, like not on a couch, but like get yourself on the ground, on the floor, and just allow your body to exist as it exists and to breathe
Mm.
and feel the breath move through the body.
Hmm. Lying down on the floor too, I think can be really interesting because like we're curvy beings, right? Some more
Yeah.
curvy than others. And I think it's really interesting because like when you start to lay down on a hard surface, not your bed, right? Because my bed conforms to me.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's lovely, isn't it?
A beautiful, beautiful thing. And so when I lay down on the floor, right, like I feel my bum, and then there's, the gap in my lower back, and then my back, my shoulders, and my arms. It is a very different sensation than softer spaces.
It is. And it's interesting. I was just having this conversation with my husband yesterday or the day before, that one of my stress issues that's been bubbling up recently. I'm normally a great sleeper. Like I love to sleep. Like I go to bed early, I wake up early, but like I love to sleep. And I said, gosh, I feel like I want to cut my arms off before I go to bed. Like I keep waking up and like I just can't get them in the right position. And it's just like, hello, why do I think I have a pain in my neck? Right? Because there is something about whatever stress that I'm holding. Maybe it's when I'm sleeping, I'm flopping around more than normal. I don't know. Um, but I've been trying to spend more time on the floor. Grab a pillow, stick it under your knees. That's going to help a lot with that uncomfortable, a natural curve in your back. Um, but to allow my arms to expand, to see also if maybe because I used to spend a lot of my day up and around and moving and going to clients, and I do personal training as part of my business as well. And so, moving things and all of this. And right now, what am I doing? I am at my computer and on the Zoom all the time,
Thanks
right?
for joining us. And
And so but it's noticing those patterns that have changed throughout your day and trying to connect all the dots of like, oh, well, maybe my arms are wanting this movement at night or something because they're not getting it during the day. I don't know. Our nervous systems are like really, really hard coded, and
so fascinating.
those movement patterns are in there.
Right. So maybe you could be spinning around or something.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I was outside yesterday and I was like twisting side to side and like flopping my arms
Uh-huh.
back and forth.
To give them more room to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a rocket science kind of a solution. It's about paying attention
Yeah.
and trying
So
to connect those dots.
a lot of these things that we've talked about kind of sum up as mindfulness.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask another question there, and then it just stopped and left my.
Can I say something about mindfulness?
Yes, I would
Because
hope.
I think that a lot of times, and certainly because mindfulness is having a moment right now,
Mhm.
right? And I think that a lot of people, we have the movement of mindfulness that's very much about being still and being quiet, and acknowledge your thought and let it float away and clear your mind, and as a form of meditation, which is amazing and wonderful and brilliant if it works for you. People who have busy minds and busy bodies like myself, we do better with mindfulness as a movement practice.
Oh.
So whether that is some type of a yoga
Mhm.
where you're breathing deeply, your mind is quiet, you're not speaking, you're really tuning into what's happening to your body, that gives the same physiological benefits as, sitting and meditating for 10 minutes. For other people, it might be going for a walk. Leave the headphones at home. Walk, breathe. How does it feel when your foot hits the earth? What sounds are you hearing? Are you hearing more birds than you normally do? Can you walk in the middle of the street because nobody's going to run you over? Oh gosh, I hadn't noticed that this tree at my neighbor's house is loaded with fruit. That's giving a sense of mindfulness as well. And so I just offer that because I know a lot of people have this idea of mindfulness of like you got to get your little gong and you got to play it and you got to sit quietly and you have to have the lights are dim, and this is for people who are really good at being with themselves.
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, it's great for them, but
Yes.
it can be great for you too if you adapt it to what works for you.
I am starting to come around to thinking of mindfulness as literally being aware of what's happening and making
Yes.
choices about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
um and I think that it's something that so for many years I don't want to use the past tense entirely, but for many years I was a long distance runner, like an ultra runner.
Mhm.
Like would go and run 50 miles for fun kind of thing.
I
And,
know a couple of people.
right? People are like, what? Like, why? And I was like, okay, two things. Number one is I have 3 kids. And if you're going to train to run 50 miles, that's a lot of hours when nobody's asking you to do anything. But number two is, for me, it's a meditation. I don't ever listen to any music, podcast, audiobook, anything when I run. I just go and I listen to my breath and I listen to my feet and I look around and I breathe and I just enjoy being in my body. And I think that that is something that, it it creates a sense of hyper awareness. You start to notice every twinge, ooh, my foot just slipped. Was that my ankle? Am I going to rub a blister? Blah, 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 and then it's learning how to keep that crazy spiral of thoughts under control and just breathe and keep going.
1 foot
And
forward.
so I totally agree that mindfulness is about a sense of awareness, not necessarily a sense of detachment.
Because we could take that further, right? Like, so if you're working on your mindfulness practice and you're getting more in touch with your body, right? Then the person comes in the room, maybe it's the kid, and he's when's lunch going to be ready, right? And your thoughts were on something else. And then, because I think sometimes we have those same physical reactions, right? This thing comes in, it's totally benign, right? The person just is hungry and they want to be fed, right? But you're on maybe some other track. Like for me, I find myself thinking about strategy for maybe clients or work projects or whatever. And I'm like very content in this little happy space of thinking. And then
Yeah.
where's lunch? It's like you get jarred and it yeah, that my shoulders just start to find my ears again, and
Mm-hmm.
uh
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When it wasn't actually a malicious question.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really one of those things where the Viktor Frankl, a psychologist, philosopher, great writer, one of the things that he always said is that the power is in the pause and in the moment that we take to respond. Because are we going to respond with that, like, I was in the middle of something, when somebody's just asked you for lunch, or do we respond of, I need to finish this, I'll be with you in a minute.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter whether you're a 8-year-old kid or a 48-year-old adult, how you get responded to matters.
Yeah.
You're going to act differently based on how somebody responds to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working on pauses. So that might be a great way to answer the other point that we were talking about, which is how we approach everyday activities and relationships directly affects our stress, which is how our body feels. So maybe we have an invitation for people to pause.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, particularly right now where the relationships that we're having on an in-person basis are very intense because they're very limited. I think that we also have an invitation to discuss this with the people who we live with and to invite them into this experiment of, wow, this is really intense right now. And this is really hard. And I totally understand why you want to snap at your sister when she asks you to do something for the 47th time. Can we maybe try to understand why she's asking that? Because, she's 9 and hasn't seen a friend in 7 weeks and is super social, and like you're kind of it for her right now, rather than she's not just doing it to be a pest.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like in doing that and in having the conversation, it doesn't just lower our stress of like having to mediate, because that's the other thing that I keep hearing, from a lot of the women who I work with, is they're like, oh my God, I've become the all-time referee and can't even do my own stuff because I'm too busy trying to negotiate arguments between my children. That it gives them ownership and it gives them the tools to better understand and regulate their own stress and response system.
So I have a list here of things that we've discussed. I want to go over it again.
Cool.
So get in touch with the body,
Literally.
Literally. Yes. Literally touch your body. Get on the
Mhm.
floor. Touch the spot that hurts. Uh, Focus on the thing and breathe. And good breaths. Like I like to think of yoga breaths, right? Pranayama breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was not nearly deep enough, but
Well, and that's, what I always say to to women who I work with is that, like, most people think that their lungs are like from their, like, the bottom of their throat to like the top of their boobs.
oh yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah, and that's not it. It's like, way bigger than that. So breathe all the way into them.
yes,
Fill them up.
yes. Big
Empty
four
your mouth.
counts and hold
Yeah.
it. Uh, I wrote down try to solve the issue. You usually know the tips. So like with the neck, we use the neck, right?
Hmm.
Most people know, I think, some sort of heat or like if you twisted your ankle, rice, right?
Yep.
There's different methods. Like you usually know
Yeah.
something you can do to help alleviate.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be fancy, and it often
Mhm.
isn't fancy. So don't jump to like the, high intervention level.
Right. The
Start with
first,
the basics.
right. Uh, Reach out for help and speak up.
Yeah. Nobody can help you if they don't know that you need help.
Hmm.
And it doesn't make you weak to ask for help.
Yes.
Because also in asking for help, you're freeing up that other person who's scared to ask for help because they've now seen your example, that you've asked for help and you've lived through it.
Hmm. Check your standards.
Mhm. Or chuck your standards, whatever works. Um, yeah. Yeah. Are you existing with realistic standards? Or do you have standards that just don't really apply right now?
Hmm.
And that adjusting your standards is a gift to your physical and mental health.
Yes. Understand your boundaries.
Yeah. If there are things that you're doing that you can say no to and the world won't end, say no to them.
Hmm.
Teach somebody else how to do them. That's a lot of what we talk about in the podcast that's coming up is, how do you offload junk that you're doing that you hate doing, but you're
Yes.
actually helping somebody else gain a skill by doing that.
Thank you for reminding me about that because I forgot we discussed that. Uh, One aspect of what we're talking about is mindfulness, and we hammered that out.
Hmm.
And then I think this is probably my favorite thing that I wrote down. Pause.
Yeah.
What
Big
else?
breath in the pause too.
Yes.
Hmm.
Have to get that little graphic out again, I think.
Mm.
There's a pretty little graphic somebody created with just like a shape expanding and
Yep.
contracting. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, what is one other thing that we should know to get in touch with our bodies and giving ourselves grace during COVID?
I would, again, I always go to the basics, and that is, drink water. You know, being well hydrated is directly related to over 400 vital processes in your body.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, my kids joke that when I die, they're going to write on my tombstone, she should have drank more water. Because, like, literally they can like scrape their knee and I'm like, go drink some water. They can be like, I have a headache, go drink some water. They walk in like with a broken arm, I'm like, good, go drink some water. No, not really. But I think that as a society we're chronically dehydrated.
Mhm.
We actually think we're hydrating with things that are actually diuretics.
Mm.
So we're, as we're drinking, sodas or coffee or whatever, you're like, it started as water, it must be great. Water's the first ingredient in Diet Coke. Um, Drink more water.
Oh, that's awesome.
You won't be sorry.
Got to refill my water over here.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for you joining us today on this now YouTube Live that will get shared on Facebook and other venues.
Well, thanks for having me. I always love to talk about these things and to remind people that it doesn't have to be hard. that, if we can control what we can and let go with the rest, then we come out a long way ahead.
Oh, that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you.